Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Super Paranormal Chronicles. My name is Lee, your resident host, and today I am delighted to introduce our very first guest, Dr. Elliott Van Dusen, who is the President and Corporate Director at Paranormal Phenomena Research and Investigation, or PPRI. He's also the Corporate Director at Canadian Association of Parapsychological Research and Investigation, CAPRI, and is also the Executive Vice President of the Ghost Project Canada. So, Elliott, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you for having me on the show.
Perfect. So, let's have a little bit about yourself, a little bit of a bio, just to let everyone listening know who you are and what you're all about, please.
Yeah, sure. So, like you said, I'm the director of Paranormal Phenomena Research Investigation. I started that organization, which is a registered nonprofit organization in both Nova Scotia and Canada. It's also registered in the United States as well, in the state of Massachusetts, because we serve all of Atlantic Canada and New England. And I started that in 1997. A lot of people ask me if I had a paranormal experience that got me into the paranormal, but I actually hadn't. I wanted to be a police officer, specifically a homicide detective. So I found the show Unsolved Mysteries to be very captivating because they would always show cold cases. And then every once in a while, they throw a ghost story in there or a UFO story, which I found absolutely fascinating. And then it wasn't until 1997 when I discovered the X Files on TV. It had come out in 1993, but I hadn't watched it until then. And then I thought it was really interesting that you had two law enforcement officers investigating claims of the supernatural. So that's when I created PPRI to start kind of looking around my local area, collecting some local folklore stories, ghost stories, UFO sightings. And of course, that led me on to what's pretty much become a lifelong journey in the paranormal. I started investigating. Started taking academic courses wherever I could in parapsychology, and all while doing all that, I made a real career, because, as most people know, can't really make a whole lot of money in the paranormal. So I joined the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and I served with them for 15 years. And I did achieve my dream of becoming a homicide detective. I spent most of my time actually with the RCMP, 8 out of the 15 years that I was with them on plainclothes detective type sections.
Awesome. I see that you are a big fan of the X Files with the photographs that you've got behind you. So, do you put yourself more as Mulder or Scully?
Definitely more Mulder, actually, yeah, because when they created those two characters, typically males are more skeptical than females. And I've actually seen that with my work. When I do public educational events, most of my clientele are middle-aged or older females that come to the events, and there are some males that come and some that are believers. But I always kind of do a funny joke. I always do a raise of hands on how many males are here because their wife or their partner dragged them here, and there's actually quite a few hands that go up. And then, of course, even with my law enforcement career, I was much like my fictional hero, Fox Mulder, where often received a lot of ridicule for being involved in the paranormal. I don't know what it was, but every detachment that I went to, I always attribute it to, I put my nose down to the grind and went hard to work. And somebody would always Google my name, try and look up background on me. And of course, because I was so heavily involved in the paranormal, my name would come up on Google. And, I often received a lot of ridicule, just like Mulder did in the earlier season from his colleagues.
So, I'm assuming that's what led you to writing your first couple of books about paranormal in the law enforcement. Can you enlighten us on that a little bit, please?
Yeah, those were kind of anomalies, actually. So the first book that I wrote was called Evil in Exeter, and that was about a haunted house in Exeter, Rhode Island. And I mean, the most haunted house that I've ever investigated, still to this day. And that took place in 2018, 2019. But after that, my mother actually, really enjoyed the fact that I had written a book and, was doing book signings, and she encouraged me to write another one. And I told her, I said, well, these types of cases don't come along, every single day. I've been doing this for 27 years, and that was definitely the oddest case that I've been involved with for sure. So I started to think, what else could I write about? And I thought about my two passions, which was law enforcement and the paranormal. So I started to reach out to some colleagues to see if they had any stories, and they felt really, safe and comfortable talking to me. About the paranormal, and they often shared ghost stories, UFO stories, even some cryptid or cryptozoology animals that are not yet identified by science type stories. And before I knew it, I had over 50 stories. So I published my second book, Supernatural Encounters: True Paranormal Accounts from Law Enforcement. And then after that came out, of course, I was doing podcasts and promoting the book. And I had more law enforcement officers from all over contact me. And I've actually been credited with that from some of the academic people in parapsychology about being able to tap into that niche market where law enforcement will actually share those experiences, because a lot of people find that when they talk to law enforcement about the paranormal, they don't typically get any information from them. In fact, I just did a podcast yesterday, and the gentleman was telling me the same thing, that every time he reaches out to law enforcement about their UFO sightings, he doesn't get them. So I don't know if it was my background in law enforcement or if it was a mix of my background in law enforcement plus they knew I was involved in the paranormal, or I've also been told I'm a pretty easy guy to talk to. So I kind of lucked out, and I was able to collect well over 100 stories that might have gone
Wow.
untold if they hadn't have been published.
That's pretty cool. I think from an outsider looking in, I think that it is probably much 50-50 with regard to the fact that you're law enforcement and you actually got an interest, because they know that, like you said, that they're not going to ridicule you, and they're not going to, you're not going to laugh at them, basically, because you already understand what's going on. So,
Absolutely.
so see from that you said earlier about creating PPRI. So, can you go into the beginnings of how PPRI came about and how you kind of expanded into what it is today?
Yeah, so I started it in 1997 with a friend that was also interested in stories of the supernatural, and we began to kind of look at some local stories here in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, and collect ghost stories, UFO sightings, and eventually that led into investigating people's homes. That seems to be the biggest um, kind of file that you get contacted about are ghosts and hauntings. So we started to purchase equipment when we could. Obviously, at this point, we were very young men, under 20 years old, working regular jobs. So. Trying to save up to buy all the equipment that we could, cameras and tape recorders and electromagnetic field radiation detectors, and it really kind of took off. I would say in the early 2000s. By then, I had found a parapsychologist that was teaching parapsychology at the Nova Scotia Community College here, named Dr. Daryl Walsh. I had taken both of his courses. He invited me to join his organization at the time when they were doing investigations, which was called the Center for Parapsychological Studies in Canada. And that really gave me a proper kind of background in how to do a real scientific investigation with people that were much older than me, had a lot more experience than me, and I really kind of took the mentee mindset at that organization and was moldable. And then, of course, I started to seek out wherever I could get more reputable education in parapsychology. And at the time, Stratford Career Institute in Toronto, Ontario, had offered a parapsychology diploma. They stopped offering it for many, many years, but I think I just recently saw last year that they may have started it back up again. And that's kind of where I got my foundation to start out with, but besides those two NSCC courses.
Awesome. So, obviously, with PPRI starting out as an investigation unit, what made you then decide to create CAPRI and start teaching the courses to individuals?
Yeah, so how the name CAPRI came about is, I often joke, our federal government, nothing simple with them. So when we decided to register ourselves as a not for profit organization across Canada, the innovation department that does those registries didn't like our name, Paranormal Phenomena Research Investigation Association, which is our proper name that we're registered in Nova Scotia. And it wasn't because there was any other organizations with a similar name, but for whatever reason they didn't like it. So we had to bounce back a couple of different names, and finally the name Canadian Association of Parapsychological Research and Investigation stuck. And then during COVID, I had noticed that there was quite a demand from people looking for education in parapsychology because it had kind of dried up. In the late 90s and early 2000s, you could start to find spots that were teaching parapsychology. But then it kind of dried up, especially in the actual academic university levels. There just, isn't funding for those types of courses. So I decided to look at my organization, look at the expertise that we have, and start developing some online courses that would be flexible for individuals. So it's all online learning. We provide all the open source material. It's relatively priced fair. I actually did a cost analysis. I looked at different organizations that were teaching courses, and I was able to undercut them all, but still provide the same quality education that you would get elsewhere. So we launched that about 2 falls ago, and it has done fairly well. We've registered, I want to say, at least over 50 new students that I had never met before. I met some great people. I actually met you, through that.
That's true.
It's been phenomenal, and it's great for us because we also get to make connections with people from all over. And when we do find somebody that's really well versed in the paranormal and a like-minded individual such as yourself, we're able to actually reach out if somebody needs help in your local area and offer that case to you, which is great. It's all about networking in this. And
Absolutely.
so between trying to provide that high quality education where it's based on academic papers that were written, things that were proven in the laboratory, based on real experiences, and the networking aspect of it, I find those types of courses really invaluable. I still take different courses to this day. If I see a university offering, a course here and there in parapsychology or something similar, I always enroll for it. I've never taken a course and not learned something new.
That's pretty cool. So, as you just said, yeah, I have been a student of yours for a few of the courses. I do have my favourites, the one that the few that I've been on. But what would you say is the most popular courses that people want to get involved in?
I would definitely say we have a lot of people that want to enroll in the introduction to demonology, which is really interesting. I have an interest in demonology, which is unusual for people that are involved in parapsychology, just because it's more heavily based on religion. But I find the aspects of demonology fascinating because a lot of things that manifest in a demonic case are actually fall back under parapsychology. When somebody that's allegedly possessed can obtain information from you, from your mind, they're mind scanning you, that would fall under telepathy. When they're able to provide you future information that comes true, that would be precognition. When they're able to make things move and levitate with their mind, that would be psychokinesis. All that stuff actually falls under parapsychology. So I find it very fascinating, even though there's a religious component to it. I'd say the second most popular course, of course, is our introduction to parapsychology, and it might not necessarily be what people think it is. I know it wasn't when I was young and I first signed up for it. I thought that extrasensory perception and psychokinesis was boring, and I really didn't honestly care about it as much as I did about survival. Ghosts and hauntings. That's what I was really interested in. It wasn't until I got older and I realized that you have to know about all three of those aspects to really understand the haunting phenomena. Especially when you're dealing with ghosts that don't have a physical body, and what they are is we believe that it's somebody's human consciousness and personality that has survived bodily death, but they're still able to manipulate the physical environment. Well, that is psychokinesis. So if you don't understand psychokinesis and how a ghost can open doors and close doors, you're at a real disadvantage there. So it did all kind of fall into place for me as I, of course, gained some more experience and wisdom.
Yeah, because I found coming on your courses, the first one that I did was the ghosts and hauntings, and the tutors were Darrell and yourself. Then I did the poltergeist phenomena course, and then I did the introduction to demonology. And every single week, you're learning different stuff about each subject every single week. And from me being a complete novice in the paranormal world to start doing these courses, I've now got the nickname in our group as being the brains because because I'm coming out with, well, actually, if you do this course, you'll find out about X, Y, and Z, and they go, oh yeah, well, we must jump on these courses if they're so good. And like, I tell loads of people about these courses because not only are they very informative, but I find that that it's not just all serious. We do have a great laugh, like the banter that I, and Darrell have between each other. Sort of like we have a lot of fun. So, are there any really cool new courses that are coming up that you want to talk about? Hint, hint.
No, you're right. I will second that too. We do have some fun on the course. We do have some laughs, and like I said, especially if we run like 4 week and 8 week courses. So I find when you run the 8 week course, you really get to know the students a lot better because you're meeting with them, for 2.5 hours once a week on Zoom. So it's face to face digitally. You really do get to know them and bond with them. We do have some courses. I decided which courses we're going to run for our spring session. We're going to have a new one that is going to be taught by yourself called Paranormal Equipment course. And I thought that was really important because everywhere I go, I keep seeing people with misinformation about using the paranormal equipment. Some people call it ghost detectors and they think that, the phone apps, that they're real. And there's a lot of other things behind it. And it's amazing how many people don't know how to use their equipment properly. I can tell you right now, every time we go to an investigation, I purchased us body cameras because of an incident. Somebody had told me about another paranormal group that was doing an investigation and a rotary phone rang. And I said, "Oh my God!" It's like, tell me that they got it on video or audio. And the museum curator said, "No, they didn't. We weren't even in the room, and we all ran to the room, and it stopped, and we have no evidence of it." And I thought, oh man, that's terrible, but that's typical of the paranormal. It's so spontaneous. It happens when we don't expect it. And then I thought, because of my law enforcement background, hey, body worn cameras aren't that expensive. Maybe we should invest in some for the organization. And we have, and they have actually come in handy at times. But every time I go on an investigation and I have to set them up properly, I have the manual with me and I have to go through it to make sure that I'm doing it properly. It's not something that we use every day. We might conduct, I'd say, maybe 10 investigations per year. So, if you go a couple months without using it, it's good to brush up on that. And I really do think this course that you're going to put on is going to be very educational. There's just, so much to learn about the equipment. And to complement your course, we have some other ones that will be coming down the pipe eventually. I've got my two professional photographers working on a paranormal photography course where we're actually going to incorporate a bit of a practical component into it, where they will go out and take some pictures, and then our instructors will walk them through how to use the software to lighten the image and analyze the image and play around with the shadows and the lighting and the contrast. And then we're also working on the electronic voice phenomena course, which would complement again your course very well. And we're also going to do a practical component with that, where we may provide you with an EVP that we have, or we may have a couple of course fake ones, and then we'll get you to analyze it with the software. We'll show you how to use the software, get you to analyze it, get you to isolate it, get you to increase the volume on it, and really try and get you to produce, the best possible evidence available. So I think that course is going to be great. I'm glad that we're adding it, and of course, it'll also assist your organization as well, because you're going to be teaching it for us, and we're going to split the tuition. And for those that don't know, when you sign up for our courses, that's how we do all of our stuff for free. That's how we investigate for the public for free. Is any tuition money that you pay to us goes into the nonprofit bank account, and then if we do have a family that needs help, there may be money there to travel to their home or to purchase a new piece of equipment. And same with all of our educational events. By the time we pay our expenses and the venue and all that stuff, any profit that's left over goes directly back into the organization. And that's how we fund ourselves. And in fact, all the proceeds from the sales of my books as well, I always donate back to PPRI. Because again, we are a nonprofit, and unless you're teaching at a university, usually under something else like psychology or sociology, and then you're kind of writing paranormal papers on the side of your desk, you can't really make a run of this for a paid career. Unfortunately, as much as we all want to, it's just not there.
That's it. And you see some of the TV shows, and people go, "Well, that'd be really cool to do that for a living." But like I say, in reality, there's absolutely no chance, because at the end of the day, a lot of what we do and what we use and use to guide ourselves, a lot of it is a pseudoscience at the end of the day. That's what I was basically getting at. So there's a lot of I won't say that people think it's fake, but it's very difficult to prove something that's not been proven. And
Yeah, absolutely, it is. That's why very few paranormal things have been entered in court, because it just has such a high standard, and you can't prove the paranormal one way or the other. There's still a lot of things that we don't understand. We certainly made some headway on things, but like you said, when you start digging into it, there's a whole lot about the paranormal and how things operate against what we know in the physical sciences right now, that we still just don't understand.
Yeah. And that's why, going back to the course that I'm going to be teaching on paranormal equipment, I've broken it down into 4 weeks. So the first week is going to be about the cameras and the audio, the stuff that every paranormal investigator needs. Yeah, if you're going to get the basics, they're the basics. And then week 2 goes into more of the baseline observations kind of equipment. So you're talking about your electromagnetic field readers, you're talking about your black mold readers, you're talking about your thermometers and your anemometers for wind and temperature. So that's going to kind of be the week 2. Week 3 is going to be more of the bells and whistles, flashy gadget that everyone thinks that everybody needs, where in fact you don't. They're just a way for another company to get loads of money. So I'm talking about your REM pods and your cat balls and your dead bells and that kind of thing. And then week 4, I've just entitled Other. So that's going to be your dowsing rods, your Ouija board, your pendulums, and a few other things along that lines. So I'm really looking forward to teach. First off, I've got to finish the course. I've got to actually create it, which I'm 3/4 of the way through. But I'm really looking forward to teaching it under your umbrella, because I think it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think so too, and it's a practical course. It's something that, like, any paranormal investigator, I can almost guarantee you could take, and will learn something new. Like, a lot of people are using their cell phones, but what we're finding is that the apps, most of them, when you dig into them and read them and go to the websites, they do specifically say that they're for entertainment purposes only. And we do know that apps are designed to listen to what we say, what we do, and manipulate behavior. Apple just got hit with a major multi-million-dollar lawsuit because Siri was turning on and recording people's conversations and recording information. You're basically a walking microphone. And I can tell you that when I worked with the RCMP, that the mobile Facebook app also had coding in there where they can turn on the microphone and listen to you. And it's no coincidence that if you're talking to a friend about, hey, I might want to purchase a BMW tomorrow, and a couple hours later you go home and you're scrolling through Facebook and you haven't actually gone on your phone and looked at BMW and it's not cookies or anything like that, you will see ads on there. I know I've had conversations even with my wife about makeup, for example, stuff that I definitely would not Google or look into, and sure enough, a couple hours later, I'm getting ads on it. Or she does it to me all the time with TikTok. She'll be like, "Hey, did you see that TikTok with this guy?" And I'd be like, "No," and then all of a sudden, that guy is showing up in my feed. So very manipulative software, and when you're trying to do proper scientific investigation, those are not the tools that you want to use.
Yeah.
And
It's
we'll
quite,
talk about a lot of that on the
yeah.
course.
Yeah.
It's going to be an
You
eye
kind of
opener.
stumped me. Yeah. You kind of stumped me a little bit that I can't believe that you haven't Googled makeup. Sort of like,
No, it's funny, just an odd time. Like I said, somebody will talk to me about something that I know I certainly haven't Googled or looked up, and all of a sudden I'm getting ads for it on Facebook and social media.
yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Yeah, I've got
Yes.
a perfect example about that I'm going to save for the course, where we think that the app was listening to us prior to an investigation that we did, but I'm going to save that for the course. So, one of your new adventures that you've got going with regard to PPRI is the Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Unit. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, so that was really interesting. So when I started PPRI back in 1997, I mean, our name is generic. It's Paranormal Phenomena Research and Investigation, because that's what we do. We research and investigate paranormal phenomena. And when I started it in 1997, I had a huge interest in UFOs and aliens and alien abduction. I thought all that was fascinating. Area 51, anything to do with that, I thought was absolutely fascinating. I would read magazines and books, and I found, though, what happened is once I created a paranormal organization, the majority of things that we get reported to us are ghosts and hauntings. So I ended up unintentionally becoming a subject matter expert in ghosts and hauntings, which is fine. I mean, I absolutely love that phenomena as well, and I know it better now than I would anything in ufology. But um, we went to the Shag Harbor UFO Expo last year, my brother-in-law and I, and he's retired Air Force. He's had a couple of UFO experiences while he was working with the Air Force. He was an air traffic controller for them. And when we were driving back from Shag Harbor, two things stuck out to me. One, I thought, you know what? We haven't had a UFO sighting reported to us in years. Why is that? And two, I thought it was interesting at the event. They asked for a raise of hands, how many people have seen a UFO? Most of the room put their hand up. And then when they said, how many people reported that UFO to somebody? Very few hands were up, maybe one or two. And I thought to myself, geez, there's a big gap in data right there. So on the way back, thought about it. And when I got home, I kind of looked at our website, looked at my objectives and priorities. And I realized that the way the mission statement was written, it was heavily geared towards parapsychology. So what I did is I revamped what our mission statement is. I created a mission, vision, values for us, which is now on our website. And I wanted to create the UAP unit, the Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Unit. And I designated Andrew as the director of our UAP unit because he certainly has a very good background with planes, being in the Air Force. He's very familiar with the lights that go on it and some of their maneuvers that they do and the heights that they can fly at. And of course, he's also got that radar information. He's also got contacts within NORAD and different things. So it made total sense for me to kind of make him the lead on it. And then this would have been, so the Shag Harbor Expo was in October, September, October. By December, we had the unit up and we had a UFO reporting form up on our website. I think to date we've received 5 or 6 previously unreported UFOs, which is phenomenal. And that's what we ask for, is any previously unreported UFOs or UAP incidents, because if you've already reported it to somebody like MUFON or Chris Rakowski, then that data already exists somewhere in Canada. So we're interested in the ones that haven't been reported yet. And we do share it. Like anyone that's into UFO research, we will put you on our distribution list. So anytime I get a UFO report, I will send it to Chris Rakowski, because I know he collects them and collects all the data for it. So we're open to sharing it. And we just recently started kind of a Google map on our website too, where you will be able to see where the UFO spots are. Now, I did kind of narrow us down to just collecting them in the New England, Atlantic, Canadian areas. That's because that's what we service. But we are open to taking them from anywhere. And we actually did, I think, receive one from Alberta out of those 5.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And it's really strange that at the time that you launched this, and then everything kicks off in New Jersey
Yes.
with
Oh, the
the
drone sightings. Yeah, it was
yeah.
right after that. Yeah, which was funny. We didn't get any drone sightings or anything. These were all like kind of historical UFO sightings, which was really cool. And we do have an option too, if you have any video or pictures that you can upload it. And the unit's good as well, because I was scrolling through Facebook one day and I saw that there was a UFO sighting around Sable Island, and somebody said that there was a fireball in the sky and it was strange, and I thought it was really interesting. So I took a couple screenshots and I sent it to Andrew and I said, hey man, if you're not working on anything, why don't you take a look into this? And he actually was able to get a photo of the fireball that had been reported to the Department of Fisheries, and they ended up releasing the photo to him, which was really cool. And then because Andrew and I had driven Chris Rakowski to the Shag Harbor UFO Expo, we got to spend a lot of intimate time with him, because it's about a 4 or 5 hour drive from Halifax to Yarmouth and then back. So I spent about 10 hours with him in the car. And I've known him since I was a child. Like when I was 16 and started PPRI, I was conversing with him on email way back in the day. He actually is such a pack rat for records. He actually had an email I'd sent him when I was like 16 years old. It was hilarious when he showed it to me. But you know what? We sent all the information we had to him. And because he has his master's in astronomy and he's, an astronomer, he actually, and I never believed it, I always thought it was one of those typical government cover-ups, but he actually said it was the planet Venus. And you always hear the odd story about a UFO being confused for the planet Venus. But in this case, he looked it up on the star map, he did his background, and because of the atmospheric conditions at the time, that UFO sighting that we had actually turned out to be the planet Venus.
That's pretty cool. So I'm going to be asking you in a few minutes about some of your personal experiences, but I'm just going to stick with PPRI for one more subject. You are, I believe it's your second or third symposium that you're planning this year. So can you
Yes.
tell us about that?
Yeah, so about 2 years ago, well, 3 years ago, actually, Daryl and I wanted to hold like a professional academic conference in the paranormal. And I started to do some research around it. And lo and behold, I found out that once I had joined the RCMP and moved out west, that the Parapsychological Association had actually held one in Halifax back in, I want to say it was around 2006 or 2009. So I'd reached out to the president of the Parapsychological Association and I asked her how it went. And she said it was actually probably one of their worst ever attended events in the history of the PA. And I kind of learned, based on doing our public events, that you have to kind of find a happy medium here in Atlantic Canada. It has to be educational, but it also has to be like entertaining and kind of in layman's terms. It can't be too heavily academic, or else you're just not going to get that interest. So COVID hit and we had to put plans on hold. But once that COVID finished and the pandemic restrictions were lifted, we went out to secure a venue and we talked to the Halifax Tower Hotel, and we decided to host our first symposium, which was the 2023 Halifax Paranormal Symposium. It was very well received. I took a huge risk. My wife calls me the Elon Musk of the paranormal, but on a beer budget, because I always have these grand ideas and I think I have the money of Elon Musk, but I don't. And that one probably cost about $15,000 to run, and I had fronted all the money either personally or through PPRI, what we had in the nonprofit bank account, and it worked out, and we were able to hold one again last year. And last year's was very successful as well. We did see a little bit of decline in ticket sales, and I think that's because the economy is just so bad everywhere. I know Shag Harbor had a significant drop in numbers. They went from like 150 attendees in 2023 to 77 in 2024. So it wasn't just us, it was other conferences around Canada that were suffering as well. But we were still successful and are going to be holding the 2025 Halifax Paranormal Symposium for the third year at the Halifax Tower Hotel and Conference Center. Beautiful venue. It's probably the nicest hotel in Halifax, and I'm not just saying that because they're one of our gold sponsors and that we've held the event there. It is. They spared no expense when they built that place. Absolutely beautiful. And it's going to be held November 1st, Saturday, here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. This year, we actually will have technically six guest speakers, but two of them are kind of working together. So we're going to have Dr. Yana Greenberg talk about ancient aliens and ancient astronauts. We're going to have Ron Iacovetti and Tony Rathman talk to us about electronic voice phenomena and the two different devices that they've built. They built the Staticom, and they also built the digital seance experience, which both they claim is live communication with the deceased. I can say that Dr. Yana and I did a private session with them, and the conversation that we were having between us four and the voices on the other end was relevant. When we had Yana talk to them in Russian, they actually started to make jokes about the Russian language not being real and things like that. So the conversation was actually relevant, and they don't have a receiver in it, like a radio receiver. So it's not like somebody is on the other end with a radio, like feeding that information, or you're not getting interference. So it's going to be very interesting to hear those guys present on EVP and then actually do a workshop for us with the attendees, where we're going to pick people to come up and actually ask questions to the deceased. You may actually end up lucking out and connecting with someone that or that they give you information that is meaningful to you. Then we'll have one of my investigators, Pierre Filitro, talking about Ouija boards. That came up, that people are interested in, the history of Ouija boards, and there's a lot of nonsense associated with them. So we're going to cover that off as well. Natalie Jones, the CEO of Paraflex, is coming. She's going to talk to us about metaphysical energies. And last but not least, we're going to have Toronto journalist Brian Baker come and talk to us about some of the cryptozoology stuff that he has covered while reporting.
That sounds pretty cool. And I might even scare you one symposium and just turn up unannounced and expect to get into free.
That would be awesome. Yeah. You're more than welcome. Yeah. If you do come, let me know, because I'll sneak you in the door for free.
I have contacts, so I should be okay. So just before we leave, I know you've been into the paranormal world for quite a few years. So I'd like to ask you about some of your personal experiences that always come to mind when people ask this question. One of the things that you can't explain it, or some of these true experiences that a paranormal investigator can experience during a good career. So,
well, when you ask that question, or anyone asks that question, there's definitely three different things that pop into my mind for sure. I mean, I know that there's more as well, but the three that really stumped me, I would say, would be the first time I ever experienced anything paranormal. PPRI was established. Would have been, I believe it was in between 1999 and like 2001. We went to a alleged haunted house in Kentville, Nova Scotia, where the homeowners said that pennies were materializing all over the home. And they had seen an apparition of one of their dogs that they had to put down. They were seeing faces in photographs, and they were seeing the apparition of a female walking down their stairwell. So there was a lot of activity that they had reported to us that obviously piqued our interest. So we sent a small team down to conduct an overnight investigation. And the first thing we did when we got there, the house was clean. They did a tour around the house with us. They showed us the jar that they would keep all these pennies in, and we set up our equipment. And the husband and the two daughters went to bed around 11 or 12 o'clock at night. So it was just myself, the other investigators, and the wife that were home and downstairs in the living room. And the way their house was set up is if the husband and the kids came downstairs, you would see them because we were in the living room and the stairwell was right there to the right. So you would have seen them come down. And every hour on the hour, this is back before cell phones and things like that, we actually had a camcorder that was recording on VHS. So I'd have to get one of my investigators to go check it to make sure the tape hadn't run out and that the batteries were still going. And sure enough, around between 3 and 5 in the morning, when they went to go check the camera, you could hear me ask him to do that. You could hear him get up off the couch, the springs lift from the couch. You could hear him walk towards the camera, footsteps get louder, and then you can kind of hear him gasp, and a penny had materialized at the base of the tripod. Of course, outside of camera range, but the penny had appeared there. Nobody had planted it there or put it there. That was something that totally, blew our mind, and we ended up coming back for a second investigation there because of that one incident. And then the second time we were there, one of my other investigators that just recently rejoined us within the last couple of years, actually, he was out of the paranormal for a while, but he's back. He had actually witnessed a female child apparition on the bed in that house. So there was no doubt that there was something going on in that house that we couldn't explain. The other two things that really stand out have to do with technology, and it was in the Exeter case. And the first one was there was a strange message that had appeared on the homeowner's phone. She had gone downstairs with her son. Her daughter was off to school, and every morning they'd go down, check on the cats, make sure the litter box is clean, they got food, they got water. And when she came up, her phone was lit up as if someone had sent her a text. And when she went over and looked at it, it said, "Hey, Surrey, Malik, dirty girl." And then the response said, "In my realm, you could be anything." And so she called me. I was back in Canada at the time, very haunted house. She was freaking out. So the first question I asked was, "Hey, was the TV on?" Because, we're all sitting around, and sometimes, Amazon, Alexa pops on, and, Siri can sometimes think it's you're saying her name, and that'll pop on. But there was no radio on, no TV on. There was nobody upstairs. So I said, "Okay, that's interesting. Let me call you back. I want to check a few things." Hung up. I tested it on my phone, and the proper response at the time was, I just don't understand this gender thing. So I'm like, okay, well, she's on the AT&T network. I'm on Bell. I'll call my business partner in Boston. He's on the same network. So I had Spencer do it on his phone. He got the same response that I did. So we tried it with a third Apple iPhone, and sure enough, same response that me and Spencer had gotten. So later on, when we eventually contacted Apple, they had no idea why the iOS had responded with in my realm, you can be anything, as opposed to what it should have responded, which was, I just don't understand this whole gender thing. So that was obviously very interesting. And then when I started to research the name Malik, because I said, well, Malik to me sounds like a name. So I started to research the name Malik. And in this particular case, years before I got involved, an Arabic medium had told the family that the homeowner had an evil jinn attached to her. And a jinn in the Quran is our version of an angel or a demon. So they can be good or bad, just like angels are. They become demons when they're fallen angels. So sure enough, I start researching Malik and find out that Malik is actually a jinn in the Quran that has 19 other jinns underneath them. So the message actually had some meaning and was relatable to the case, which I thought was extremely interesting. The other electronic thing that happened to me was one night I was using religious provocation. So for anyone that doesn't know what that is, if you have a suspected demonic case, it's been shown that when you do certain things with religious items, whether it's set up, crucifixes or little statues, read scripture, splash holy water, different things like that can provoke a response from the demons. And that particular there was a particular night that I was splashing holy water up in the master bedroom where most of the activity seemed to be centered around. And I was asking, not even asking, but demanding a sign. I said, in the blood of Christ and or in the name of Christ and the blood of Christ, I compel you to give me a sign. And there was nothing. It was absolutely dead quiet. Wasn't getting any sort of response. So didn't think anything of it. About 24 hours literally passed. It was about 24 hours later, because it would have been around 3 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon I was doing this. We go and pick the kids up from school, bring them back home. As soon as we pull in the driveway in the home, all of a sudden, and it was the homeowner's vehicle, which I don't drive. I don't connect to her Bluetooth. None of that, because I had my Civic there. And when I would come down to do the investigation, I'd park the Civic, not touch it until it was time to go back to Canada. So I'm in the passenger seat and we pull into the driveway, and all of a sudden her music cuts off and there's a man speaking. And I'm like, what the heck? And I start listening to it. And I'm like, hey, that's me. And then I realized, because it said, in the name of Christ and the blood of Christ, I compel you give me a sign. And I pulled my phone out, and somehow my phone had gone through the password. So you either had to use the Face ID or enter your password. It had pulled up the voice recorder. It had connected to her Bluetooth, bumped her off, and connected to my phone to her Bluetooth. And then it would have had to find the recording, because I make notes on the voice recorders for the file, so that when I go to type up my reports, I've got accurate notes. All of those steps, that's just too many. I had no explanation for that. How do you do that? How do you get into that phone, bypass passwords, go through the all the different recordings I had, find that? And not just that, but the recording didn't start at that was about halfway through. So halfway through that recording, it would have had to like slide it across to get to that exact part. I couldn't explain that, and I couldn't explain and Apple couldn't explain the message.
That is absolutely crazy. So we've come to the end of our episode. For all those people that are listening, I will put the PPRI contacts in the episode description. So if you do want to jump on one of the courses, especially mine that's coming up, then just follow the link and it will take you straight to PPRI. So Elliott, I thank you very much for your time. No doubt we'll be speaking in the next couple of weeks when we start preparing for the course. But
Yes.
yeah, thank you very much, and I will see you in the future. Thanks very much. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Lee. Appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Bye.